Hi and welcome back to Low Carb Abode. I'm Ludmilla and today we're going to make Keto Buttermilk Biscuits. They are buttery and soft just like biscuits should be, and they also have this rich buttermilk flavor. So if you want to add biscuits this year to your Thanksgiving dinner, you can do so without having to worry about the carbs. Enjoy! We will begin with our flour mixture. I need 1 cup of blanched almond flour, also a 1/4 cup of coconut flour, and to this I'm adding half a teaspoon of salt. I'm using the pink Himalayan salt. Sea salt works well too, or kosher salt. I'm adding 1 teaspoon of xanthan gum, as this really helps with binding when you don't use gluten. Just like in regular biscuits, we're also using baking powder, 1 tablespoon. And I'm giving this all a good whisk so it's well combined, and then we are ready to prepare our butter. So usually biscuits are made with plenty of chilled butter, and this gives the biscuits this flaky texture. We need a 1/4 cup of chilled butter, so it needs to come straight out of your fridge. Mine is unsalted, but you can also use salted butter. If you do, you may want to decrease the amount of salt you're adding to your dry ingredients. There are different ways to work the butter into your flour mixture. You can first cut the butter into little cubes like I'm doing, and then cut the butter in with either a pastry cutter or a whisk or the back of a fork. I like this method because it leaves me with pea-sized chunks of butter in my dough, and I think it makes the dough really soft and buttery. Another option would be to use a box grater and grate your butter and then just combine it in your flour mixture, or even add the whole mixture with your cubed butter in a food processor and just let it run for a few seconds. If you decide to use a box grater, make sure that you put your butter in the freezer for about 5 to 10 minutes so it doesn't melt while you grate it. But as you can see, I'm just using my whisk here and I'm just pushing down on the butter, cutting it into tiny little pieces until they're about pea size. The mixture will look like breadcrumbs at the end. So now we're ready for our liquid ingredients. I'm using 2 large egg whites, just the whites, not the yolks. So traditional biscuits are actually made without the addition of eggs. But the rules are a little different when we try to bake without wheat flour. And the egg whites really help with the binding of our dough and also fluffing the biscuits up a bit. Since we don't want our butter crumbs to melt at this point, make sure to use cold eggs. And now we're ready for our special ingredient, buttermilk. So some people are afraid of buttermilk when they're on a low-carb diet because it does have some carbs, about 13 grams of carbs per cup. But since we only need half a cup of buttermilk for 9 biscuits, it really doesn't add up to many carbs. I'm first stirring together the whites with the buttermilk and then adding the flour mixture to it. I'm just using a spoon to combine this mixture now, and you need to be careful not to overmix the dough. So I'm just stirring until it's combined, and yes, the mixture will look lumpy. But don't worry, that's exactly how we want it. So I just wanted to share with you that I usually don't use buttermilk for this recipe, but instead use homemade kefir. And that's because I usually don't have buttermilk in the house, but I always have kefir at home because I drink it all the time. It's so healthy, it's filled with probiotics, and homemade kefir is fairly low in carbs. So if you want to go that route too, you can substitute the buttermilk 1-to-1 with kefir. Alright, so at this point I preheated my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and I also lined a large baking sheet with parchment paper. And onto that I'm dropping my portions, about a 1/4 cup for each biscuit. and I found that using an ice cream scooper makes life very easy. This recipe should make about 9 biscuits, but if you have lots of people coming over for Thanksgiving, just double the batch. To give my biscuits that biscuit look, I'm using a spoon to slightly flatten down the top so it won't rise into a dome. I'm also pushing in the sides a little bit so it looks nice and circular. If you follow my recipe, you will end up with each biscuit having about 3 grams of net carbs and just about 1 gram of sugar, which is not bad at all. If you're not from the US, biscuits may actually refer to something other than the biscuits I'm making today, which are American or US biscuits. And these biscuits are similar to dinner rolls, but they are denser and flakier. And they don't require any yeast, even if you make them in traditional way with flour, because they're leavened with baking powder or soda instead, which is why they're considered a quick bread. They are a popular breakfast item here, served with gravy or sausage. They're also served for Thanksgiving as a side, and you can also just enjoy them with butter or some jam, like you would with a British scone. Alright, let's bake them in our preheated oven for about 15 to 16 minutes until they're golden brown on top. As with most keto breads, you want to let them cool down. I let mine cool down for about 10 minutes until I tried them. I love how much they resemble traditional high-carb biscuits. They will look great on your dinner table. And I'm very happy with how the texture turned out as well. They are quite soft, but they also have this crumbly texture that comes from all the butter that we used. And that's so typical of traditional biscuits. But what's even more important is the flavor that will remind you of the biscuits you used to eat. Not only do they taste buttery, but they also have this rich, tangy flavor that comes from the buttermilk that we used. And we achieved all of this from scratch without using any grains or gluten. It's pretty amazing. So give this recipe a try and let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, I will add the link to the recipe in the description below. I will talk to you soon. Bye.